Good evening. The time I have is 7 p.m., so I would like to call to order the Raymore City Council regular meeting for October the 25th. The mayor is not available, out of town at this time, so I'll be presiding over the City Council session this evening as Mayor Pro Temp. Could I have the roll call, please?
Councilmember Abdelgawad.
Here.
Councilmember Barber, absent. Councilmember Berenson.
Present.
Councilmember Burke.
Present.
Councilmember Serko.
Present.
Councilmember Holman.
Present.
Councilmember Townsend.
Present.
Councilmember Will Scherzer.
Present.
Mayor Turnbow, absent.
If you would please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. And I believe, just as an update, I believe Councilmember Barber was attempting to, or is going to be scheduled to try to dial in, and we're going to leave the session open. But if he does, I believe we'll announce his presence at that time if he does appear.
That is correct, sir.
Okay. And at which point, I believe if he does, we will switch to roll call votes, or do we do roll call votes continually?
Correct as well, sir.
Okay, thank you. In that case, moving on through the agenda, I believe we do not have any presentations or special awards this evening. Then we'll move into staff reports. Mr. Freeborn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. I would ask Mr. Krass to make a report for Public Works.
Thank you, Mr. Fearborn, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, members of the council. In addition to my written report, just wanted to remind everyone that this Saturday is our annual Household Hazardous Waste event from 8 till noon on Saturday at the Eagle Glen School. This is a full event, so anything you were contemplating dumping down the storm sewer that you shouldn't, please bring it to Eagle Glen. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Excellent report. Mr. Freeborn.
Thank you, Mr. Krass. I would ask Ms. Harmer to make a report for the Communications Department.
Thank you, Mr. Fearborn. Good evening, members of the council, Mayor Pro Tem Townsend.
There you go. Easy enough.
I just want to add to Mr. Krass's reminder about the household hazardous waste drop-off. There are a lot of products that are accepted, and on the front page of raymore.com on our homepage, there are 3 different areas where you can find all of the information you need to know on the exact items that are accepted, what's not accepted, and then other items that you might have that you want to get rid of. We have information on how to dispose of that as well. I also wanted to let you know about the blood drive that's coming up on Wednesday, November 3rd. It's at Centerview from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. When I came here to the city, I know there were some blood drives in the past, but when I came here, I had a goal to have at least 2 a year. So my first one that I organized and became partners with the Community Blood Center was in December of 2017. And since then, 283 units of whole blood and double red blood cells have been donated by Raymore area donors. Since 1 unit of blood can potentially treat up to 3 hospital patients, it's possible that just our donors and our drives have saved or positively affected up to 849 lives. So we have 15 more appointments to fill to reach our goal of 45 units of blood at this blood drive, and this would be really a lot more exciting to announce if the Chiefs had not broken 1 million hearts yesterday. But there are a few Chiefs raffles that blood donors will be automatically entered in when they participate in this drive. So we are raffling off a Chiefs Fleece Sherpa throw blanket along with a Chiefs double-sided vintage style house flag from the official Chiefs Pro Shop. So this is a $73 value. And then the Community Blood Center is also entering anyone who donates in the month of November into a drawing to win one of 2 Chiefs fan packs, which one of them is 4 tickets and a parking pass to the Chiefs Raiders game on December 12th, and one is a $200 Rally House gift card. So if saving lives or the Nutter Butters wasn't enough of an incentive, then you can win some Chiefs stuff, potentially. And then lastly, I just wanted to, don't want to take anything away from probably your next report about Shop with the Cop at one of the upcoming meetings. But November does start next week, and Raymore Police will be both donating money to be able to nix the razor for the month. I know Councilwoman Abdelgawad, you love this for Lieutenant Abdelgawad. You love that scruff, right? And then they'll also be raising money for Shop with the Cop, which does allow Raymore Police to take area children in need shopping for the holidays. So each child is given $100 to spend. The only rule is that they have to buy one thing for themselves. And of course, it is all about the kids, but there is a little friendly competition between the police to see who can raise the most money. And this is one of my favorite projects to work with the department on, not only because it's a wonderful cause, but because Captain Wilson gives me a little extra leeway to post some pretty silly and slightly embarrassing photos and videos of our officers. So, and he doesn't approve all of my ideas, but a lot of them he does. So definitely make sure you're keeping an eye out on our website at raymore.com/shop, and that's also where you can make a tax-deductible donation. And then our police department's Facebook and Twitter accounts, as well as the City of Raymore's Instagram account through the month of November. So that will be starting next week. And that concludes my report.
Excellent. Thank you, Ms. Harmer. Any questions of staff? Yes.
Just a quick question. What's the goal for Shop with a Cop? How many children do we usually like to take? And so what would be that fundraising goal?
We took, well, last year was COVID, so obviously we had a little bit of difficulty. And we changed things up last year and actually had the kids outside. We had the bus outside, and Santa was there, and they actually shopped with their parents last year instead of shopping with us. But 35 is what we had in the previous year, and so we'd like to increase that to 45 or 50.
Any questions? Mr. Circle.
I do have an appointment to give blood this week, just so you know.
I did see that on there. Thank you.
Outstanding. Thank you. No more questions. Thank you, Ms. Harmer. Mr. Fearborn.
Thank you, Ms. Harmer. I just love No Shave November and December. I would ask Mr. Mustine to make a report for Parks and Recreation.
Thanks, sir. Council, I have submitted a written report, have a couple of quick updates for you. Number one, we had our Trucktoberfest last Friday night. We had 6 trucks total, and by our count, we had probably 300 to 350 throughout the evening. So it was pretty packed and a beautiful night for that event. So happy to host that. Starting next week, our park maintenance staff and our recreation staff will begin the conversion of TV Hannah Station into what we like to call Winter Park, as you guys all know. So look forward to converting the depot into the ice rink and getting prepared for the mayor's tree lighting and the holiday season. So that's coming up. And then finally, tomorrow night, we have a park board meeting, and it's a big agenda, so I felt like we should make note of that. At 6 o'clock, Mr. Zur will be there to give training for appointed members, appointed officials. So we try to do that annually, but we have several new park board members, so this will be pretty timely for those folks. And then we are approving Art in the Park locations to move forward to the Arts Commission. We're reviewing the Hawk Ridge Park West site plans that the Planning and Zoning did last week, and then so we're going to review those this week and then move forward with the bidding process of that project. We have a budget amendment to discuss and a sportsmanship policy review that we're going over, so kind of some hefty stuff for the park board. And that concludes my staff report. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions of staff? Mr. Holman.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Mustine, excellent report, as usual. Very busy, obviously. Some great stuff you're talking about there. I know last report, we were real close on our fundraising goal for the Hawk's Nest.
Yes, sir.
Do you have an update on that, and are we still taking donations, or kind of what's going on with that one?
Excellent question. We'll always take donations. If you guys want to give money, we'll take it, and we'll find somewhere to put it. But I did include an updated thermometer within my staff report. That actual total includes what we're anticipating, some inflation and rising costs. So we did kind of beef that agenda, or that final up. So we're about $100,000. But if you take the original goal that we had planned for, the $850,000 that was our original, we're there. We've met that. So now we're just waiting for the bidding process to see if any inflation or any cost rose and what we need to do from that point forward. The land water conservation grant that we have been waiting on, we did finally receive the notification to proceed. We were I believe Melissa read the note that I sent her, and I didn't obviously read it very well because she informed me that we were one of 20 out of 30-some projects that got approved for, this would be 2020's projects. That's how far behind they are. But we are authorized now to prepare the bid documents and move forward with that. So that project is moving forward.
I apologize out of deference to Mr. Zur. That was a leading question. I knew the answer. The point being that your initial estimate on that park was 2-3 years ago. We all know costs have gone up greatly since then. That's the point, really, I was hoping you would bring out, and you did very well. Obviously, it's going to cost us a little more to build that simply because the cost of materials, labor, et cetera, have gone up. And so just kind of wanted to get that out there, and that still looking at raising a little bit more money to make sure we can put that fantastic
We're still
playground in
following
there.
leads and actually meeting with corporations and stuff, and we'll continue to do that until the final check's paid.
Outstanding, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bedwell.
Thank you. Just a quick question. You mentioned the mayor's Christmas tree and all of that. I was looking on the website the other day for the date of that. Do you happen to know the date and time?
It'll be the first Friday in December. We haven't posted all of that because we're still doing the details of that. I know today we started advertising for the Christmas tree trail, so most of that stuff will start coming out within the next week.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Any further questions? Thank you, Mr. Mustine.
Thank you.
Mr. Raymore.
Thank you, Mr. Mustine. Next week, November 1, on Monday, we will be having a work session. 2 items currently on the agenda. Several of the council members, after the procedure to pick our newest council member went through, pointed out that perhaps it would be a good idea for the council to come together and review those procedures and what goes into that particular process. Finally, flush some more pressing items through. So we'll have that on the agenda. And then we will also be having a discussion about if the council has any desire to set any parameters on participating via video conferencing. We'll have some pretty specific recommendations for you relative to that procedure. So those 2 procedures will be on. We have now shut off the Zoom meeting. Obviously, Councilmember Barber is going to be unable to participate, so there will be no need for roll call votes tonight. And I believe we have a designated seconder, and Councilmember Brook has volunteered to do that particular action. Last, you may notice that Mr. Carteret is not here. He has been called away on a very sudden family emergency. Fortunately, we have Mr. Gress filling in his seat, a place he is familiar with. So he will be doing certain of his items tonight. We'll be splitting the rest of the duties. Because Mr. Carteret is not here, you will notice a decidedly shorter group of presentations on his items this evening. That concludes staff reports, sir.
Thank you, sir. And one item for, I believe there was a need to modify the new business portion of the
Thank you, sir. Because I did not realize it when I was putting the agenda together for you all, but item A is actually a tangent item with item C on new business. So with your kind permission, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, if we could move item C up before item B this evening.
I have no problems with that unless there's any from council members.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other further questions for staff? Thank you, sir. That would conclude our staff reports. I believe there's no committee reports for this evening, so we'll move on to the consent agenda, and I'll entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem,
Mr. Holman?
I move that we approve the consent agenda to include the city council minutes from the meeting of October 11th, 2021.
Thank you. There's been a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, sir. There's been a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda item A, city council minutes for October the 11th, 2021. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion. All those, excuse me, I'll take an order. All those in favor of the order? All those opposed? Motion passes. That concludes the consent agenda, and we'll move on to new business. Excuse me, unfinished business. I've done this before. Unfinished business, and Mr. Furborn, the item A of this consent agenda. Unfinished business, excuse me.
You're simply asking for a motion and a second, sir.
I am asking for a motion and a second. I have done this before. I've been a part of this before, so please bear with me this evening.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, Mr. Holman.
I believe you, first of all, and I would like to move to, now you've caught me with
I have
this
caught you
disease.
with this, see?
I want to move that we approve Bill 3660,
There we go.
adoption of the fiscal year 2022 city budget as amended during first reading.
Excellent, thank you.
Your Honor.
Is there a second?
We do have to have the reading of the bill.
That's right.
Yes, I have to ask Ms. Hill to read the bill. Ms. Hill, thank you.
Second reading of Bill 3660 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, approving the fiscal year 2022 budget.
Thank you for the reading of Bill 3630. Is there any discussion on, I would entertain a motion at this time for Bill 3630.
Would you like me to restate, sir?
You have a motion on the table at this time.
Fair enough.
Is there a
But do require a second.
Yes. Is there a second?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I second that motion.
Thank you. There's a motion and a second on Bill 3630. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. Motion passes. Now, let's get this back together again. May I have the reading of, yes, sorry? Yes, we're doing C. May I have the second, new business, yes. May I have the reading of Bill 3661, please?
The second reading of Bill 3661 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, amending the fiscal year 2021 operating budget.
Thank you. I would entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem?
Mr. Holman?
I would move to approve Bill 3661, budget amendment, fiscal year 2021 operating adjustments.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. There's been a motion and a second on this item. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. And moving on to item C, may I have the second reading of Bill 3662?
The second reading of Bill 3662 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, adding Section 600.6, Victims Economic Safety and Security Act, VESA leave to the Administrative Policy Manual.
Thank you. Is there, I would entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem?
Mr. Holman?
I would move that we approve Bill 3662, Administrative Policy Manual Amendment, VESA leave policy.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'd like to second.
Thank you. There's a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. And moving on to item D, may I have the second reading of Bill 3659?
The second reading of Bill 3659 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, amending Section 130.300, subsection A, court costs of the Code of Ordinances, City of Raymore.
Thank you. I would entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem?
Mr. Holman?
I move that we approve Bill 3659, Code Amendment, Section 130.300, subsection A, court cost.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Yes, I'd like to second.
Thank you. There's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? None. Motion passes 7-0. Now moving on to new business. May I have the reading, reading of Resolution 21-40, please?
The reading of Resolution 2140 by title only, a resolution of the City of Raymore, Missouri, approving the 7th Amendment to the Memorandum of Understanding for the Creekmore Planned Unit Development.
Thank you. And seeing that this is a public hearing, I will at this time open the public hearing. May I have a staff report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. I would ask Mr. Gress to make a staff report on this item.
Thank you, sir. Cooper Land Development has filed a request for the Seventh Amendment to the Memorandum of Understanding for the Creekmore Subdivision. The proposed amendment proposes the conversion of the remaining 30 acres of land originally slated for two-family residential development within that subdivision to convert that to single-family development, a single-family subdivision. In addition to that, the proposed amendment clarifies the expectations and timing for the completion of 163rd Street within that same subdivision. This application does require a public hearing, and thus it was advertised in the Journal newspaper. The items of record include the notice of publication, the Unified Development Code, the Growth Management Plan, the staff report, and the proposed Seventh Amendment to the MOU. The original preliminary development plan and the MOU for the subdivision were approved by the City Council on January 26 of 2004. And both of those documents have served as the guiding documents for residential development in that subdivision. To date, there have been 6 previous amendments to that agreement, all of which have been either conversions of other two-family dwelling units areas to single-family or minor adjustments to the development standards for the various phases of that subdivision. The proposed Seventh Amendment would again modify the preliminary development plan by removing the last remaining area of proposed two-family dwellings within the subdivision, replacing it with a proposed single-family subdivision, in addition to adding 4 qualifying conditions for the timing and construction of 163rd Street. Under the proposed amendment, Cooper Land Development would assume the responsibility for the construction of 163rd Street from Sunset Lane East to the eastern property line of Creekmore under any of the 4 following scenarios, whichever of these would occur first in terms of development. Either A, any development that occurs east of the existing 20-foot sanitary sewer that runs east of West Brook at Creekmore 14th Plat, with the exception of the East Brook at Creekmore 3rd Plat, which we'll hear about here in just a moment. B, if any segment of 163rd Street is required to provide access to any of the lots within the Parkside subdivision. C, if 36 months have passed since the acceptance of the public infrastructure by the city for the East Brook or Creekmore 3rd Plat, or D, if 163rd Street is constructed from Madison Street to the east property line of the Creekmore subdivision. Under any 4 of those scenarios, Cooper Land Development would assume the responsibility for constructing 163rd Street. The Planning Commission did provide proposed findings of fact for your consideration. It was at their October 19th meeting that they voted to accept the staff proposed findings of fact and forward case number 21032, the 7th Amendment to the Creekmore MOU, to the City Council with a recommendation of approval. That would conclude staff report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions of staff? Hearing none. Seeing how this is a public hearing, if there's anyone from the public wishing to speak on this item, please step forward and state your name and address for the record. Going once. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. And at this time, I would entertain a motion to dispose of Resolution 21-40.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem,
Mr. Holman?
I move that we approve Resolution 2140, 7th Amendment to the Creekmore Memorandum of Understanding.
Second.
Second?
Yes, please.
Thank you. There's been a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None. First reading passes 7-0. Now moving to item C, may I have the first reading of Bill 3663, please?
The first reading of Bill 3663 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, approving the East Brook at Creekmore 3rd Plat.
Thank you. Is there a staff report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. I would ask Mr. Gress to make a staff report on this agenda item.
Thank you, sir. Coincidental with the previous application, Cooper Land Development has also filed an application for the East Brook at Creekmore 3rd Plat, which is a 44-lot single-family subdivision located west of North Madison Street and south of Hampstead Drive in the Creekmore subdivision. The property is just shy of 20 acres and is currently zoned PUD, planned unit development, and is surrounded by similar zoning classifications and land uses surrounding the property. The growth management plan, the future land use map within this document identifies this property as appropriate for low-density residential development, and the major thoroughfare plan map within that plan identifies North Madison as a major collector road and Hampstead Drive as a minor collector road. As I mentioned, the original preliminary development plan and MOU were approved in January of 2004. More recently, the East Brook at Creekmore first plat was approved by the City Council on August 18th of 2020, and the East Brook at Creekmore second final plat was approved on May 24th of 2021. The Engineering Division has reviewed this application and indicated that it does comply with the city's standards and does recommend approval of the application. Looking at the development standards for this property, these were actually established on July 23rd of 2007 with the third amendment to the MOU. If you compare this to the first two phases of East Brook, which were a little bit smaller, a little bit narrower, the lot sizes within the East Brook at Creekmore third plat are actually slightly larger than that. They're more similar to the lot sizes that you'll find in the Edgewater at Creekmore subdivision. Very similar lots that have been built within that subdivision. The table within the staff report outlines what those standards are. The Planning Commission did provide their proposed findings of fact for your consideration. And again, at their October 19th meeting, they did vote to accept the staff proposed findings of fact and forward case 21034, East Brook at Creekmore third final plat to the City Council with a recommendation of approval. That will conclude staff report.
Thank you. Thank you for that staff report. I'm sorry. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to, is there any questions of staff first before I move on? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem,
Mr. Holman,
I move that we approve Bill 3663, East Brook, East Brook at Creekmore third final plat.
thank you. Is there a second?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, if I may second that motion.
Thank you. There's a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? None. One absence. The motion moves forward 7-0. May I have the first reading of Bill 3657 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3657 by title only, an ordinance amending the city traffic engineer's Schedule 3 parking limited or prohibited to establish no parking signs within the city limits of Raymore, Cass County, Missouri.
Thank you. Is there a staff report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. I would ask Mr. Krass to make a staff report on this agenda item.
Thank you, Mr. Fearborn. Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, members of the council. The Sunset Plaza development will be placing several townhomes along the east side of Sunset Lane that will share a driveway access. Although they are providing excess on-site parking within the development, there were concerns expressed during the Planning Commission process about site distance issues if parking were allowed to continue on Sunset Lane. Staff concurs with those concerns and has brought forward a recommendation to prohibit parking on both sides of Sunset Lane from Pine Street to 58 Highway. That concludes my staff report.
Thank you. Any further questions to staff? I do recall during the deliberations of this that the developer also concurred with that recommendation as well.
That is correct.
Thank you. If there are no further questions, I will entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem,
Mr. Holman,
I move that we approve Bill 3657, establishing a no parking zone on Sunset Lane from Pine Street to 58 Highway.
thank you. Is there a second?
I'd like to second that motion.
Thank you. There's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor? 7-0, one absent. Motion moves forward. Moving on to item D, may I have the first reading of Bill 3664 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3664 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, approving the Stegmeyer Acres Lots 3 through 5 final plat.
Thank you. Is there a staff report?
Thank you, sir. I would ask Mr. Zur to make a staff report on this agenda item.
Thank you, Mr. Fearborn, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, members of the council. The staff report for this evening with regard to this application. Pam Hatcher has filed a request for a final plat approval for the replat of Lot 2 of Stegmeyer Acres located at 1403 North Madison Street. The replat creates a total of 4 lots with access off of North Madison Street. The Hatcher residence exists on Lot 3 with proposed homes to be built on Lots 4 and 5, and currently the identified Lot 2 being to the east, half of the tract will will remain as undeveloped land. This application received recommendation of approval by the Planning and Zoning Commission on October 19th, 2021, with a unanimous vote and accepting staff's findings of fact. Prior to that, the Board of Zoning Adjustment had granted a variance and approved the same on August 17th, 2021, allowing for the frontage requirements for the lot to allow the private easement drive that would allow for the access to the back two lots that will be utilized. Engineering Department has recommended approval and has no issues with the proposed application, and I am happy to answer any additional questions that you might have with regard to the application, and I would note the plat map that was included on page 115 for your reference. Thank you. That would conclude my staff report.
Thank you. Is there any questions to staff? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem,
Mr. Holman?
I move that we approve Bill 3664, replat of Stegmeyer Acres, Lot 2.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'd like to second the motion, please.
Thank you. The motion has been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion on this item? Ms. Abdulgawad?
Thank you. Just a note, the applicant is here in the audience, and I know we always like to appreciate when they're here. I don't know if anyone has questions for her, if that would be appropriate, but thank you guys for being here.
Thank you for that. If there's no further questions or discussions, all those in favor? Motion moves forward, one absent, 7-0. Moving on to the next agenda item E, may I have the first reading of Bill 3665, please?
The first reading of Bill 3665 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, establishing new ward boundaries.
Thank you. Is there a staff report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. In accordance with Section 9.4 of the City Charter and Section 105010 of the City Code, the City Council, at its October 18, 2021 work session, discussed several options regarding redistricting of ward boundaries using the 2020 census data that we had received in September. The staff recommended option was drawn to provide compact and contiguous territory for each ward while anticipating future growth into each of the wards. At the work session, Council agreed by consensus to proceed with having staff recommend option number 4 and put it on tonight's agenda for first reading. That concludes staff report.
Thank you. I know there was a lot of debate regarding this item at our last work session. I appreciate it coming forward because we are under a timeline, I believe, for the election cycle that's coming up. Is there any questions of staff? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem,
Mr. Holman?
I move that we approve Bill 3665, new ward boundaries.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. The motion has been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion on this item? Mr. Abdulgawad?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. I just wanted to share a little bit of my opinion that I shared at the work session. I think part of our job in doing this is to make sure that our city's divided into 4 fairly equal parts. I don't feel like this drawing divides us into really 4 equal parts. Ward 4 is, I could say, over 700, but it's only really 701 people, as far as numbers, higher population than any other ward. However, I do respect the points that were brought up at the last work session in that this map is the one that seems easiest for people to understand and to be able to figure out what ward they're in. I know, especially in Ward 4, in the past we've had people a little bit confused when the neighbors right across the street from them are in a different ward than they are because we had a certain little neighborhood cut out in Ward 4. So I think that this does make it more simple so people can hopefully more easily know which ward they're in. But also wanted to express my concern, even looking at the growth that we expect in this city. I'm worried that our wards are just going to be off balance more than I would have hoped. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Barrington?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. I agree with Councilman Abdulgawad in the fact that I do believe our ward is going to have more people in it for quite a long time. I also think that there's going to be, I know there's going to be growth in some and all the wards, but I think we might be slightly underestimating the amount of growth that's going to happen in Ward 4. With that said, looking at the three or four options we had before, I still think this is the best option. And there is no perfect way to do this. I think as a resident, looking at it before, there were some very confusing places in here where like she said, the neighbor across the street was in one ward and they were in another. So I guess time will tell, but I think this is the best of the four. However, the one caveat, like I said, I believe Ward 4 is going to remain probably the largest ward for quite a long time with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Graves. Any further discussions? Seeing none, I believe there was a motion and a second already, so is all those in favor? Thank you. Motion moves forward 7-0. Moving on to item F, the next agenda item, I have the first reading of Resolution 21-39, please.
The reading of Resolution 2139 by title only. A resolution of the City of Raymore, Missouri, approving the 2022 through 2026 Raymore Capital Improvements Program.
Thank you. Is there a staff report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. I would ask Mr. Eke to make the staff report on this agenda item.
Thank you, sir. Earlier this evening, the council gave approval to the FY22 budget moving forward. As part of that budget was the first year of the 5-year capital improvement program, the CIP for the next fiscal year being part of that approval. The CIP for the following 4 years serves as the planning guide for the city. The proposed 22 through 26 CIP was presented to the City Council in mid-August and was discussed at subsequent meetings. CIP was also reviewed and was the subject of a public hearing before the Planning and Zoning Commission. The resolution before the council tonight gives approval to those final 4 years and the entirety of the capital improvement plan for the city. That concludes staff report, and I can answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. Any questions to staff? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I move that we approve Resolution 21-39, approval of the 2022 through 2026 Capital Improvement Program.
Thank you. Is there a second?
If I may second that.
Thank you. Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion, no opposed. Motion moves forward 7-0. That would conclude new business, and we would move now into the portion of the agenda for public comments, which will allow space for any of those in the public who would like to speak. Please step forward, state your name and address for the record, and keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. Seeing that everyone in the room is either staff or city council, I believe we don't have any public comments. At this time, we'll move forward into mayor and council comments, and I would begin to my far right and start with Mr. Berenstain.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. I was listening to my comments over in my head that I made about the ward boundaries, and I went to the Joe Biden School of Public Speaking, so I apologize. That wasn't very clear. To summarize that, I do think it's a much better plan than what we had. So I want to thank the city staff for the work they did on drawing those up. Again, there is no perfect way to divide this. Of the 4 options we had, I believe this is the best. Looking forward to all that's coming up here in the month of November and the rest of October here, the blood drive, the shop with the cop, and all the other events that are going to be happening. That concludes my comments. Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Douglas?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. I just wanted to take a minute tonight to give a shout out to all of our volunteers on our volunteer boards. Mr. Mustine made a point of saying the Parks Board has a pretty heavy agenda coming up, and lots of times we don't recognize how much work those folks do. So city staff, Nathan, if you guys would kind of give them an extra pat on the back from me, maybe from us, probably most people up here would concur. They do a lot of work with all they get is maybe dinner sometimes, you know, for that. And I think almost all of us up here also have been in their shoes on one board or another. And so just wanted to say we do appreciate their work and their participation, and we couldn't do what we do as a city without those people to help us. And then also, Mr. Fearborn, if we could do something about the No Shave November thing, I mean, I'm in.
We'll talk.
My husband, the last couple of weeks, has been saying, it's because you don't like children around Christmas time. Is that it? Like, that's what I do. My life's work is supporting children. You can't say that. But it's for a good cause. That's the only saving grace for the No Shave November that's grown into December. And January, and February. Shop with the Cop is a great program. I hope we get to do it back the normal way, face to face, and have a whole evening of fun for those children and those families. I know it's a great program for both the families who get to come and shop and our officers, and frankly, our PD families and the organizations that volunteer that evening. Just very heartwarming, and it's great to know that we're making a difference for so many people outside of our normal realm of work. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. Mr. Holman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you for filling in for the mayor tonight in his absence. I have but one thing, just something for the consideration of everyone. I believe that this body does and has for quite some time operated in a very efficient and very productive manner for the citizens of Raymore. And I believe that is because we are a nonpartisan body and because we put the benefit of our citizens first, as opposed to ideology. Everybody's got their own opinions. We know that. The country's more divided than it's ever been. But we seem, in my opinion, to function much better than our counterparts at the federal government and at the state level because we do not have the ideological war that wages on in this country every day. Again, we look as a body to the best interests of the 22 to almost 23,000 people that live in this city now and the more that call this home every day. And because we have such a great staff that feels that same way, they put aside personal beliefs and do what is best for those people. And I am grateful to be a part of this body and the way that we think. Former Councilman Moorhead used to say, we don't always see things eye to eye, and sometimes we fight. But even families fight, sometimes even at Thanksgiving. That's all I have, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Well said. Thank you, sir. Mr. Burke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. I just wanted to say a quick little something I noticed about the new ward boundaries. It looks like Ward 2 is Alabama, so I'm going to go ahead and declare our official Ward 2 song is Sweet Home Alabama. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. Mr. Circo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I concede to that, Mr. Burke. That's fine for our Ward 2. Again, Mr. Holman, thank you for the kind words. You're right. We are, like I say before, visionaries with the city, with the council. We're not looking for today also, but 5 years, 10 years. We work together very diligently, like you said, for the people and for the city and the growth and the business, whatever it takes. So that's who we are. And we only put the people first and the city first, and that's why we're here. I guess Mr. Iggy, Mr. Crash, you guys got a head start on November. You're looking pretty dapper here for that, so that's not too bad. And Mr. Mustine, you're doing a great job. You're getting to get real busy. This is your time of the year on the fall time with the Christmas tree lighting and so much going on. So kudos to you. Hope you get what you need, everything, get that stuff going. The people look forward to it. And they appreciate everything you guys do in the parks. And I look forward to the playground next year. It's going to be so great. It's just put us on the map even farther than we already are. Otherwise, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Circo. Ms. Will Scherzer.
I wanted to say thank you to Mr. Mayor Pro Tem for filling in. I feel like you've done an excellent job tonight.
I wouldn't say that.
I also wanted to say thank you and congratulations to Ms. Harmer for putting together such a successful blood drive throughout the years. It's, surely created or provided a potential life-saving opportunities for so many people. So I think that that's phenomenal that she's done that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And I, sitting in this seat, this does get kind of, there's a little pressure behind it to kind of moderate the evening. And to Mr. Holman's point, I don't know about this efficiency that went with this evening as we started out, but we got through it. We knuckled through it and got it done. Thank you for everyone's patience as I rode through the evening. And yes, this is a very well-organized and well-run organization. And that stems from the leadership of Mr. Fearborn and his staff that's in this room, and those who are not in this room that are actually out in the trenches making it happen. And we could not sit here and make this look as easy as it does 45 minutes into it without the support and the efforts of all the staff, the 100-plus employees of this city that makes this city what it is. And I'll even extend it beyond those who receive a paycheck from the city and those who volunteer, as Ms. Abdul-Gawad has said, but also to the citizens of Raymore, because it's not the buildings, it's not the sidewalks, it's not the parks that we install, but it's those who utilize those in our city that make it what it is. It's the people who that you see at the grocery store, that you see at the Trucktober, that you see at pick an event that the city puts on, from the Parks and Rec and the social media outlets that Ms. Harmer gives everybody an opportunity to express their love for this community. Matter of fact, I spoke to a resident who lives on the eastern side of the city, who's been here for 5 years, and she was just surprised that, just happenstance that we were talking, and I'm on the city council, and she expressed her love for this community in the short 5 years that she's been here, and is kind of having this tug of war with the husband of, we want to move, and she's like, nope, this is it, this is where we're going to be until forever. And that speaks a lot about the quality of effort that everyone puts into making this city what it is. And I will say that forever and ever. We may have, as Mr. Holman said, we may have our times within the agenda that we may have a little tug of war going on, but we get through it. We make the best decision that we think is in the right decision for the community, and then we move forward. And then we appreciate the residents who let us know, good or bad, and we take that information and do the best that we can with it to make the best for the community. So again, thank you to my colleagues, and thank you, and I'm certain Mr. Mayor would say the same in his absence as well, and Mr. Barber, who is also out. I believe, yes, sir.
Just say one more thing. Mrs. Harmer, I'll be there to give him my blood. If you need 2 or 3 extra bags, go ahead and take them. You just might have to give me a ride home.
I think Mr. Circle wants to give blood tonight. That's the second time he's made about giving blood. Outstanding. I believe I don't believe we have any cause to go into executive session this evening. Excellent. I believe that would conclude the business for this evening. And at this time, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem,
Mr. Holman.
prior to the motion, I would say in honor of General Powell, hoo-ah, sir.
Outstanding. Thank you.
And at this time, I would move that we adjourn the October 25th, 2021 meeting of the Raymore City Council.
Excellent.
Seconded.
Thank you. The motion's been made and seconded. I would take all those in favor. I would not think there would be any opposed. We are adjourned.